So welcome back to the channel. I'm going to make a video today about thrifting, and specifically thrifting in the UK, because I've watched many videos on YouTube about thrifting, and most of them are based in the States, and we don't quite have the same culture here in terms of how we obtain goods from the thrift kind of ethos. So in the UK we have charity shops, which are kind of the equivalent of thrift shops in the UK, but most of them don't deal with electronics, and if they do, they do it in a very limited way. Most vintage computers that I've acquired over the years have come through eBay, and that's the main way that we would get things in the UK. We also have Facebook Marketplace. We also have FreeCycle. Facebook Marketplace, as you all know, is kind of like a marketplace where things generally advertised locally. You can now deliver things nationally on Facebook Marketplace, but it's mainly aimed at the local delivery. FreeCycle is a very similar thing. It's a local, geographical based system where you can advertise goods for free, and they must be free of charge, and then someone can choose to take them. Now, the other way that we can get thrift equivalents in the UK is through car boot sales. I'm not sure if you have those in the States, but basically they're exactly what they say they are. On a particular day of the week, typically Saturday or Sunday, people go along, vendors go along in their cars into a field in an organised way, and they display stuff typically on the trestle tables, and there's a whole kind of variation of what kind of vendors go to those. But car boot sales is a way that you can obtain quite cheap electronics in the UK as well. I've got some footage of a car boot sale, so I'm just going to quickly switch to that. So today we're investigating car boot sales, and we're at one today. It's a Sunday. They're very commonly on the weekend. This one starts at 8:30. It's 8:25 now. There's already hundreds of people here, so we're going to be fighting the crowds for any bargains that are in there. Car boots are very variable. Sometimes you can go around and there can be absolutely nothing at all that's interesting from a retro tech point of view. There's always loads of things: clothes, toys, books, random tools, machinery, but not often is there tech stuff. Sometimes there's photography. Sometimes you might find an old digital camera or some old digital media that are very good to collect, because they're sometimes getting a bit hard to find. So we're going to see what we can see today, but I'm not holding any hopes for any major bargains, but it is one way of finding retro tech in the UK. Pretty slim pickings again today, not a lot, certainly nothing very interesting. I picked up this new inbox USB 2 switchable hub. I thought it might be useful. £2, so pretty reasonably priced. Yeah, I mean, I've never picked up anything really interesting at a car boot sale. I've never seen any PCI cards or ISA cards for sale. I've never seen a whole system unit for sale. Sometimes you get laptops, you know, very low-end broken ones. Today there was lots of monitors, monitor stands, keyboards, RF keyboards without the dongle, things like that. So there's lots of tat, but nothing really worth buying, really. And that's my experience of car boots, but judging by what people say on Vogons, they pick up some of their best stuff at car boot sales. That's never worked for me. eBay has worked better for me. Facebook Marketplace has worked better for me, but you know, it's just one of those things. I think it depends where you are and how often you go to car boots. You've really got to work at them. You know, you got to go multiple times, and it's only occasional that you're going to get lucky. But there you go. Anyway, that's car boots covered. It's worth going around twice. A lot of people, there's a mixture of people who go to car boot sales in terms of vendors. There's people who are trying to empty their houses, and they're really keen to get rid of stuff, so they will drop their prices very quickly, and particularly towards the end of the day, if they haven't sold stuff, you know, they'll be starting almost giving it away. Then you've got the kind of people who do it as a side hustle, and they, you know, they're in it for the money, and they tend to have slightly better quality stock, but they'll tend to stick to one theme. So they'll either be like children's toys and books, or clothing, or housewares, things like that. And then you do get the kind of bric-a-brac random traders who just have picked up loads of stuff and have a van full. And it's worth staying around and going around at least once or twice, at least twice I should say, because you know, as stuff sells, I'll get more stuff out of the van and put it on the table. So there could well be something in there that we've missed just because it hasn't been put on display yet. But we can't stay all day. So car boots are good. I've never had a good experience at a car boot in terms of being able to find something that's really, really good. If you look on the Vogons forums, you'll see that many people seem to get good bargains going to car boots. And I think that's kind of UK and Europe wide. Charity shops tend to be a bit more limited. Certainly the ones around by where I live, they do have some electrical stuff, but they're not really interested in kind of old electrical stuff that may or may not be working. They're much more interested in modern things like LCD TVs, DVD players, etc., etc. So charity shops are useful, and I have bought stuff from charity shops, but it tends to be mainly software and games. They often mix those up with the DVD titles, and so you can pick those up sometimes in charity shops. FreeCycle has worked for me. Most recently I got some floppy disks free through FreeCycle. Excellent. Facebook Marketplace also tends to work quite well for me. You have to keep your eyes peeled, and obviously you set an area that you want to kind of cover, but you have to be a little bit selective choosing the right area, otherwise you're not going to get kind of the wider range of products that you maybe want to acquire. But you've also then got to travel as well, so you don't want to put too big a distance on those. eBay is by far away the most common place to obtain goods, mostly because delivery, it can be arranged and is kind of assumed by most vendors. Lots of e-waste and e-recyclers use eBay to sell their goods. If you're looking for kind of a 10-year-old laptop, it's a great way of getting those. Some of the kind of more obscure stuff, like, you know, first generation iMacs, they're going to be on eBay, and there's a whole range. You get some that are being sold by people who just want to empty their house, or the house that they've acquired, or been left by a relative, and the prices start very, very low. And then you get the kind of collectors, presumably people like us who are watching this video, who want to make a profit potentially on selling something that they've had in their collection that they now want to get rid of. So prices can be very variable on eBay. Availability is generally pretty good, but prices can be quite variable, and they've gone up significantly in the last 10 years. There's another type of shop though that sometimes proves fruitful, and that is what I refer to as a bric-a-brac shop. And they're kind of like this weird bit in between an antique shop and a e-waste recycler and a charity shop. They're kind of in the intersection of those things. You sometimes get these shops that sell these random second-hand goods. Sometimes they've been donated, sometimes they've been curated, but sometimes you find really good stuff in those, and that's what I'm going to show you today, because I have got some stuff that I've got both from a car boot and from a bric-a-brac shop. The rest of stuff I'm going to show you is all from the bric-a-brac shop, and we'll start off with this. So nice little 3.5-inch disc holder. As you can see from the label, it was £2, so pretty reasonable price. A lot of things in this bric-a-brac shop didn't have prices on, and you know, the price was just made up when you got to the till kind of thing. This one did actually have a price on it, so that's was nice. Sometimes I've got a bit of a thing about buying things that have prices on them. Sometimes people do that because they want to maximize their profit, and who wouldn't? They've got bills to pay. But sometimes it feels like, you know, you could be paying over the odds for an item that you don't need to be. Anyway, little disc holder, very nice for my DOS 622 floppies, etc. And it's bigger brother, bit dirty, but this one's got a price on it as well, £3 for that, which I thought was entirely reasonable. These kind of things go for a lot more on eBay. So there was a section of kind of cables and gadgets, so I had a little look through, and I picked up these. So this, as it says on the label, 50-pin SCSI cable. So I've got a few SCSI devices. It's nice to have cables of different lengths and different connectors on each end, so that's quite handy. In the same vein was this. It's labelled SCSI 1 to SCSI 2. It says it's got a Centronic style connector on one end and a SCSI connector on the other. So Again, very useful, potentially useful for connecting up things like zip drives. That's the kind of connector they have on those. I picked those both up. I think they were both £3 or £4. Very reasonably priced for SCSI cables. They can be quite pricey if you try and get hold of them any other way. And just nearby, but not in the same place, was this. And this is obviously a new old stock. And so this is a parallel port to SCSI adapter, I think, from a iMega Jazz drive. I haven't investigated that exactly, but I think that's what it is. But as you can see, it's brand new in the box, still got the covers on the connectors. And we'll do a little bit of research on that and see if it's useful, and see if it's useful for anything that I've got at the moment. I think that was £2. This is the only thing that I paid kind of close to market value for, I think. A box of Sony floppy disks. These are the HD ones. It's not full. There's 2, 3, so there's 8 floppy disks in there, and I paid £6 for it. And it generally, floppies are about £1 a disc now these days, I find, secondhand. Okay, what else was in this shop? Well, there was this game. So a big box PC game, Black Dahlia. I've not heard of it. I've never played it. It's very dusty, but I did have a quick look on the inside. It's got a little bit of water damage or mould here. Gonna have to wash my hands after this. So on the cover it says there's 8 CD-ROMs in here. It's got a user guide, but there are indeed 8 CD-ROMs, so it is complete, which is good. I'd imagine quite often these things get lost, or one gets lost. But 8 CD-ROMs for a PC game, that's quite a lot, isn't it? There's got a system requirements in here, so let's have a quick look at that. Obviously it requires a CD-ROM drive. So it runs on the Windows 95, Pentium 90, 16 megabytes of RAM, Windows 95, DirectX 5. That's the minimum. Recommended is Pentium 120 with 16 megs of RAM. So that should be, that could be interesting to have a little look. It's got Dennis Hopper in it. And I think it's got so many discs because I think there's a lot of full motion video in there, which for the time was tricky. Definitely going to need to clean this. November 1941, as America braces herself for World War, a vicious serial killer stalks the nation's industrial heartland. Not my usual thing, but happy to give it a go. So this was £4. I'm just going to go and wash my hands. So 2 other things that caught my eye were these 2 boxes. And you can probably see why they caught my eye, because they're motherboard boxes. Unfortunately, neither of them contains a motherboard. Let's start with the red one. So this is supposed to be a Gigabyte RZ series motherboard for Pentium 4. And it does have a lot of stuff in relating to that. It's got the RZ motherboard leaflet. There is something in here that looks like a screwdriver. There's indeed a tiny little screwdriver. And a mini CD drive utilities not for sale. The smart storage system, SATA USB 2. So I think that probably isn't for this motherboard, that's probably from an add-in card. And it's funny you should say that, because that's the other thing that's in this box. I've got a PCI add-in card. And looking at the connectors, I think it's IDE. So I haven't looked this up yet, I haven't looked at the model number or anything. It's got a silicon image chip on it, but I'm guessing that's a dual channel IDE adapter. Looks like it's from week 15 of 2006. Capacitors look all right. So that might be useful. It might even be Mac compatible, which might be useful in one of my Mac towers that I've got ready to be repaired. So there's no motherboard in here, but there was this. And the other thing that actually caught my eye originally were these ribbon cables, because I'm actually completely out of 80 core ribbon cables. So the fact there was 2 of those in there was what drew me to actually buy this in the first place. There is a driver disc SIS chipset motherboard utilities, so that's for this motherboard. That's the driver CD. Norton Internet Security 2005, so that gives you an idea of when this came out, 2005, 2006 maybe. There's also this envelope in here that says 2 times 256 megabytes DDR, so I'm guessing some RAM sticks in here. Oh, and 1 gigabyte PC 3200 DDR. Okay, there's a receipt that's not related. I'll remove that just because it's got an address on it. So we've got 2 sticks of RAM. We've got an ADATA 256 megs DDR, and we've got some Kingston Valley RAM, probably 256 megs of DDR as well. Very good. So in this box we've got some RAM, we've got some ribbon cables, a PCI IDE card, and a motherboard manual. And this box cost me £4. So I think it was worth it just for the cables, to be honest. So the drive is a little bit of a bonus. So that's box number 1. Obviously, it's a bit of a shame it didn't have a motherboard in it, but I'm quite happy with what is in there. So let's have a look at the other board. It's a Soltec main board, front side bus 533, probably Pentium 4 as well. Powerful software bundle, hyperthread technology supported. So yeah, Pentium 4. Is there a motherboard in here? No, but there is some cool stuff in here. So what we've got here is a wireless PCI card. I don't know what it is. It's a G card, in fact. Edimax branded. Now, don't particularly need that, but nice to have anyway. Next up, we have a PCI network card. In fact, it's not a network card. It says ISDN-SC. So this is an ISDN adapter. We don't have ISDN anymore in the UK. Almost all the lines have been switched over to some other form of broadband. ADSL, for example. But having an ADSL adapter, that's the first one I've owned, so that's interesting. Also in here is another PCI wireless network card. This one's an Air Plus G Plus from D-Link, but basically it's the same kind of thing. Don't have a pressing need for that, but interesting to have. So I've got the Soltec mainboard driver CD, double. So that'll be the drivers and the software bundle. Diamond installation CD-ROM, interesting. Possibly the most interesting thing in there. You'll see why in a moment. And a Dynalink ISDN drivers and manual. So that's for the ISDN card. One of the things that attracted me to this box in particular was this. It's a Sparkle Smart Install CD. I've got a Sparkle AGP graphics card that I picked up recently that I don't know if is working, but it's nice to have an original driver's CD, so that'd be interesting to have a little play with. Sparkle GeForce 4 MX user manual. We've got a slightly grey rather than beige blanking plate, and a second one. And the thing that was most interesting about this box is there's a VGA connector on this card. I don't know if you can see that already. Riva 128 AGP card, diamond branded. So I think this box was well worth a buy because of that alone. So that's going to be really cool to have a little play with. I've never owned an NVIDIA card this early, so that's nice. It looks in pretty good. There's a couple of bent pins on the feature connector, as I said, but that might be from the bag. So this box cost me £4 as well. And these are going for definitely way more than that at the moment. It's got a date code on here. It looks like it was sometime in the middle of 1999. More CD-ROMs, Netcard I. That's for ISDN as well. PC chips, motherboard, CD, and that's interesting. Doesn't say what it's for, but I've got a PC chips and motherboard in one of those computers we picked up last week. Mainboard from a Soyo. CD manuals drivers, doesn't say which board it's for again. And an HP PSC 2100 and 2200 series Office Jet printer multifunction device. Not much use with that, the printer, but interesting to see it in the box. MaxLAN 10100 PCI Ethernet drivers. Unusual they're on a unusual they're on a floppy. Aerial for one of the Wi-Fi cards. Audio cable. So this is for analog audio at the back of your CD-ROM or DU drive. Oh, another another blanking plate. So that's 3 altogether. Phone line, cable, and then there's a whole bunch of paperwork. Powerform system utilities. So this is a Soltec user guide to go with that CD. Dynalink 128 kilobits PCI ISDN adapter, so that's the usual guide for that. And a quick start guide for a Soyo SY6BA Plus motherboard. So it's a shame there isn't one of those in the box. Some stuff there is going to have to go in paper recycling because we don't need it, and it has no use without the appropriate printer. But I think you'll agree that the video card with the driver CD worth way more than £4. So we lucked out. So that's everything that was in that box. So that wasn't everything I found. The one last thing I just need to go and get. So languishing in the corner of the shop next to those motherboard boxes was this PC. And it's not a particularly attractive PC. Mismatched colours. I don't particularly like this aesthetic, but it was £10. And I think for £10, I get 2 optical drives and a floppy. I've had £10 already. It's not a bad little case. It's got some USB and audio connectors down here under a cover. Room for a second floppy. Room for more optical drives if we need them. Side's fine. The back's showing its age a little bit because it's a little bit rusty in places. So this power supply, by the way, has got some rust around the edge of it, but it's got a separate on-off switch, which is nice. There's a bit of rust down here as well, so I don't know if things are inside are damaged as well, whether they're rusty. But for £10, you can't really argue. Even if we don't get the power supply, we've had our money's worth already. But again, what interested me the most is it's got a video card in, and we don't know what that is, so that could be interesting. It's got a wireless card. It's got a Firewire card, modem, onboard sound and joystick. Around this side, it's also got a Windows XP Home Edition sticker. So this is going to make a great Pentium 4 system if we rebuild it. But let's open it up and have a little look what's inside. It's a very typical for the mid-noughties. This has got a case with removable side panels. This aesthetic is very mid-noughties, isn't it? A black PC case. So what's it like on the inside? Okay, it's not too dusty, not too bad at all. There's no rust on the bottom. I was expecting to see a big pile of rust down there. We've got a motherboard with 3 sticks of RAM in. Got a power supply made by Eagle. Case fan here. So maybe some of this rust is actually because of the fan being on the other side and damaging it somehow. It's an ASRock motherboard, DDR400. That's all I can see from here. But we definitely have a interesting graphics card here. There's no hard drive, but that's not a surprise. There is a cable for a hard drive, plenty of Molex connectors, front panels all connected up. So let's take out a few of these cards and see what we got. There we go. So what do we got? We've got a 4-port Firewire card. Connectors are a bit grubby. It's got a NEC chipset. So this could be 0408. So it could be 4th week in 2008, but I think it's more likely to be the 8th week in 2004. Judging by the rest of the case. Although it was very dirty on this side. Firewire card. Let's get that modem out. So again, it's very dusty. Hasn't particularly got any branding on it that I can see. 56k modem. Don't know if it's a Win modem, whether it's got proper hardware in there, but the size of the chip makes me think it's probably a Win modem. Next is a wireless card. So I personally don't put wireless cards in my computers. My house and my office are both wired for Ethernet cable, so no obvious branding. Pretty substantial RF shield, probably a wireless G, I'm guessing, by the age of the rest of the system. So now comes the most interesting bit. What video card have we got for £10? Do we have anything exciting? Don't know, because there's no branding on it. So it's passively cooled. It's got RAM on both sides, so that's interesting. That tends to be a good sign. But we've got absolutely no manufacturer's identification on this side. Can't see anything on here. I'm now seeing a label here, FX5200 DVI 128. So this unfortunately isn't very interesting. It's a NVIDIA FX5200, which is kind of like the base of the 5000 series that came out after the GeForce 4, and unfortunately it was a bit of a flop in terms of architecture, but still, it was a free card essentially. It's got the ability to be low profile, which could be useful, and it's passively cooled, so you can see this being sold in a HTPC. All the capacitors look fine. Anyway, there we have a 5200. Can we see the motherboard marking now? There you go. It's a K7 SBX. So let's just quickly look that up. That B is in fact an 8. And what we've got is a K7 S8X. So socket A motherboard with an SIS 746FX chipset. Supports frontside bus of 333 MHz and DDR400. So this is sounding very like the ASRock motherboard in that other computer we got last week that didn't work. So that's interesting, although that was a KT400A chipset. But in terms of the overall spec, it's very similar. 6 PCI slots, 1 AGP slot, 3 DDR slots for a maximum of 3 GB of RAM, so that's better than the VIA chipset. But it doesn't have SATA, which the other motherboard did have. So what we're going to do is put the graphics card back in and try and boot it up and see if it works. These capacitors on here don't look too bad. I can't see any that are bulging. We might be okay. Depends if the power supply gives way on us as well. For now, let's just put the graphics card back in. So I'm going to put the graphics card in. I'm not going to bother with any other cards. Okay, we have a monitor. We have a colour matching Acer black keyboard, and I have a black power cable. So I'm going to plug this in, see if we get any pops. Nothing's gone bang. Let's actually turn it on. Yep, still quiet. Let's power the computer. Okay, so we have a CPU fan, we have a flashing light on the optical drive, we have nothing on the monitor. We've got no beep code. So we've got power coming to the optical drives. Got power going to the CPU fan and the case fan, but no video signal, no beeps, no nothing. Let's just check I've reseated that AGP card correctly. Let's try again. Oh, this time we've got a beep. Got three beeps, so it's unhappy about something. Could be the RAM, could be the video card. So 3 slow beeps like that allegedly is a RAM error. So what I'm going to do is take out the RAM and reseat it. So the RAM is a mixture of brands. There's a Kingston Value RAM. There's another, there's a Kingston Value, a Kingston RAM, a Kingston Value RAM, and then a Nania. And they're all 512 megabytes. They all look fine. Contacts look clean. Let's try and boot it with no memory and see what it says. Yep, so we're getting the same 3 beeps. So let's put 1 stick of memory back in and see what happens. So I've got 1 stick of RAM in. Hey. F2 for setup. So we now have a booting machine. Interestingly, we have an Athlon XP 2400 Plus, which is very nice. 512K of memory. No hard drive detected, both CD-ROM detected, which is nice. So that's good. So let's go into the setup and see what we've got. So default date is 2003, so I'm guessing that's when the BIOS was last made. Floppy drive is installed. What options do we have? We do have options for 1.2 megabytes. So we can take 5¼ inch drives as well, which is nice. So we have a K7 S8X BIOS with 2.2, Athlon XP 2400. Let's recognise that one memory stick as DDR33, which is correct. So we should be able to boot from USB on this one as well. It took me a little while to find my go-to USB, but in the meantime the system has gone to sleep and has not rebooted. So maybe all is not well. There is a reset button, which does work. Okay, it's not happy about the memory again. So we've managed to boot from this memory stick before, so let's give it a try again. Yeah, so it looks like we got a proper boot this time. I'm going to try the USB drive in the front USB slot and then power cycle. Oh, that's really stiff. I'm worried that's going to break my USB stick, so let's put it in the back. We've got a boot menu option, so let's use that. Samsung Flash, so let's recognise that. But we'll boot from it. Just for the purpose of testing out, we're going to use Hiren's boot CD, see if we can boot off one of the optical drives. Just thinking about it. There we go. Okay, so here we are, Hiren's boot CD. Let's just get a better resolution. Some artifacts on the display here. I'm not sure if that's a display card driver or whether this card is actually faulty as well. So we've got from XP Thoroughbred socket A, 130 nanometer, running at 2 gigahertz. Let's recognise the main board correctly and the RAM correctly, so that's all good. Spotted that it's an NVIDIA card as well. So the BIOS version is P2.2. Looking at the ASRock motherboard website, there is a version 2.6, and the main difference seems to be that they incrementally added support for different CPUs during that time. Nothing else very significant. As I said, there's a little bit of graphics corruption on the screen. I'm not sure if that's due to the driver that's built into Hiren's Windows XP, or whether it's due to a physical problem with the card itself. So there we have it, thrifting in the UK. We have a working, or mostly working, £10 computer. Just add in a hard drive and we should have that up and running. And we have a £4 Riva 128 video card. So a good result. So as I said, this was from what I would describe as a bric-a-brac shop. They're a kind of a weird breed. They kind of have fallen out of fashion a little bit, but I think maybe with the right to repair and people recycling things, I think they're going to make a bit of a comeback. We're going to keep looking on Facebook Marketplace, we're going to keep looking on eBay, but we're also going to be popping into a few shops every now and again and visiting a few car boots. So hopefully you found this video about thrifting in the UK useful. It's very different from the US version, and I'd be interested to know what it's like in the rest of Europe. So if you're living in Europe, then please leave a comment down below. Tell us where you get your bargain second-hand computers from. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.